Hi friends, I am Becky and well I'm half of the real Minnesota moms. The other half is Ashley, and Ashley's at home right now chasing around 5 crazy fun kids. But today's video is all about my story with losing my daughter Gracie. So Ashley and I have both had child loss in our lives, and we both wanted to talk about it because this is a mom's channel, and some of us moms have to deal with losing a child. It's never a choice that we have. It's just something that is taken from us and we have no control over it. It's just kind of our reality. And it's not talked about enough, so that's why we have chosen to talk about it. So today is my turn. Like I said, I am Becky. I am half of the real Minnesota moms. To start my story, back in 2012, I was pregnant with my firstborn, Gracie. We had named her at our 20-week ultrasound echocardiogram because we found out that she would be born with a congenital heart defect. And we found out that she was a little girl, and we knew her name right away. Her name was Gracie, and we call her Gracie. So the whole left side of her heart was not fully developed. It was very teeny tiny, almost non-existent. And so she would be born with a heart defect called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. She was born on August 2nd, 2012, and she was born with beautiful dark hair and these beautiful blue eyes. Right after she was born, she was basically whisked away into another room to be checked on, like to check her out and make sure that she was okay without anything like breathing tubes or anything connected to her right away. She was doing okay at the time, so like it was 10 minutes from like the time that she came out of me until the time that I actually first met her. It's like 10 minutes. My husband Sean met her before I did. I saw her for the first time and oh my gosh, she was beautiful. And I kissed her little forehead, and then she was whisked off again to the NICU. I had to have a C-section. I went through actually 36 hours of labor, and then we had to have an emergency C-section because Gracie wasn't doing so hot. I had to go into recovery, and of course 36 hours of labor and then C-section, like that recovery is like no other, you guys. It's crazy ridiculous. Comment below, let me know that I'm not alone in having that sort of torture on my body. But it's okay, we recovered from it, but it was just a harder recovery. But also because I wasn't getting all of my snuggles and I wasn't able to breastfeed. Gracie couldn't eat because they had to prepare her for surgery. So they didn't want anything in her system, in her stomach, in case she had to go into surgery right away. It was really hard not having her in the same room like a normal experience after you have a baby, staying in the same room as your baby, having to travel down in a tunnel and up several floors and like a whole different building to where your child is to go and see them and snuggle with them for just like a short hour or so before you had to get back to your room in the other hospital so that they could give you your drugs. So you were in so much pain. Fast forward to 6 days old, and we were in the cardiovascular unit at Children's Minneapolis Hospital. She had surgery at 6 days old, and on that 6th day, the morning before her surgery, was the last time that I had held her in my arms. she went in and she had her first open heart surgery. Of course, we were told that she would have 3 open heart surgeries by the time she was 4 years old. So this was the first one. She came out of surgery and she was hooked up to this big giant machine that was pumping her blood through her heart and back out through this machine, in and out, in and out. So it was doing all the hard work for her so that she could rest. She was hooked up to that machine for 7 days, for an entire week, and also had a ventilator in her nose the entire time. No feeding, no food, nothing. Just a lot of drugs to keep her comfortable and keep her resting during that time. And it was really hard to see that. To see your teeny tiny 6-pound baby connected to this machine with tubes in and out everywhere, and all you could do was just hold their hand with your finger. After that 7 days, you know, our focus was to get food into her system, right? So that, of course, was going through her trachea throat down into her stomach. So of course, no oral feeding. The goal from then on was to have her grow and to get her off the ventilator and to start eating, start getting her food in. So that was kind of the goal after it, and to wean off of the medications and drugs and everything that she was on. She had a hard time getting off of the ventilator through her nose to help her breathing. She would get very nervous without that tube, without relying on that. So she had a lot of panic, you know, episodes where they would try to wean her off of that ventilator and she would just have a hard time. She had never been in our arms since that 6th day of her life. It had been over a month. All we could do was just sit and stand right next to her bed. That was our life for over a month. After that month, we kind of got to the point where doctors were telling us, you know what, we really have to do something about, you know, her breathing. And we really want to prepare you guys to go home. Like, that was the goal, that was the end goal. She wasn't gaining a lot of weight because her body was just working so hard. We had made the decision with the doctors to have a tracheostomy. And so she had that surgery, and so she came out with a trach, and that trach, you guys, was freaking bomb. It was so awesome that exists for these kids, because after she had that placed to help her breathe, she started growing and she started eating orally. All of her therapists and everything were telling us that wasn't gonna happen, that Gracie would never orally feed. She had a GJ tube placed on her stomach to basically get food into her belly through a tube. But she proved everybody wrong, that she was going to eat orally. So we started giving her bottles and she started growing, and we got to hold her again, and I did not let her go. I held her all day long in a rocking chair. I rocked her all day long and read her stories and sang her songs, and it was the best. A little over 2 months in, Gracie was doing amazing, and we were planning a date to go home. She would have to have 24-hour care, 24-hour eyes on her. So we had nurses. We were required to have nurses at our house all the time. And so we were prepared. We were ready. We're like, we're just waiting on you, Gracie. October 22nd, 2012. It was a Monday, and that Monday was the best day. My husband had the day off, and so he was with Gracie and I at the hospital all day, and we played games, and we did wheels on the bus, and we sang songs, and you know, just, it was the best day. And she was the most alert we had ever seen her. She had smiles. She had, like, you guys, she could tell stories with her eyes by just looking at you. To ask anybody that knew her, she would tell you stories with her eyes. And that night, on the 22nd, we stayed all day. We stayed as late as we possibly could. Of course, my husband Sean had to go back home so that he could work the next morning. So I went home with him that night, and I will tell you that something, your mama's tuition is always right. Listen to it. My friends, I'm telling you, listen to it. Because that night, I did not want to leave her. I did not want to go home. It was such a good day, and I just felt this pull, this tug from her saying, Mommy, don't leave today. I need you tonight. And I wish so badly that I hadn't left that night to go home with Sean, because I got a call the next morning at 3 o'clock in the morning from Gracie's nurse, telling me that Gracie wasn't doing well. I packed an overnight bag and I headed down to the hospital. I had gotten up to her floor, and I was stopped by a woman I never met before. And she asked, "Are you Gracie's mom?" And I said yes. And she had told me that the doctors had been doing compressions on Gracie for over an hour. And I knew exactly what that meant. I saw the hallway was filled with people and filled with machines just outside her door. And a doctor came out. They'd explained a few things. We'd been trying to get, you know, the heart and lung machine called ECMO back on her that she was on, that big scary machine that she was on after surgery, and trying to get this basically life support. They kept on pushing on her little chest with 2 fingers, and I remember the nurse. It was one of Gracie's night nurses, and we loved her. And they didn't allow me to come in the room. So I sat outside, and there was a window looking into her room, and I just sat there and I pleaded with God. I prayed, please, Lord, just don't let this be it. I'm not ready. I just need more time. Please don't let this be it. And the doctor came out one more time, and she asked me to call it. She said, "Becky, we have been doing compressions for an hour and a half. There's no heartbeat. We can't find an artery to put her on life support. There's nothing more we can do." And that was it. She was gone at 4:55 in the morning, and I'll always remember looking at that clock. That moment. They said she was gone. I sat in a rocking chair when they brought her to me. And for the first time, she was free. She had no wires connected to her. She had no tubes, no nothing tying her down. One of the dreams that I had always had was to dance around the room with her, to take her around and just dance, because I love to dance. And for the first time, I danced around the room with her, because she was mobile, because she wasn't tied to anything. She grew colder and bluer and limper and more heavy. Like, how could that have happened? Because she was doing so well. We were going to go home. She was so happy. And we had that all taken away from us. We had her taken away from us. A single night, the night that I went home. There's this guilt that surrounds losing a child. And it's a guilt that a mother has that doesn't ever go away. You can't quite explain it, but you always feel like, what if? What if? And that's my what if. What if I hadn't gone home? Our job as mothers is to protect our kids, to keep them alive and to keep them well. And I think that's why we have that feeling of guilt surrounding the death of a child. It's something I did. When it's not, I bet it's just something that's always there. It's always constant. You're not alone, friend. If you've lost a child, you're not alone in that. The days following her death were just the hardest days of my life. Like, you feel numb, you feel like you're just walking, like you're just floating like a feather. You're just floating around people and things. You're floating around your house like a feather. You're just like there, but you're not, you know what I mean? You're just going through the motions, planning your child's funeral, having to see people, having to hear the words, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It stirs up anger, it stirs up sadness, it just, until you've experienced it. I hope that you never will. It's the worst feeling in the world. In the weeks and months following, all I wanted to do was be in the kitchen all the time. I had such a passion for baking, and I just wanted to bake my feelings away. I just wanted, it was like a therapy for me. Somehow I would find Gracie in the kitchen. I was baking cupcakes galore and cakes and cookies and just everything and shoving it in my husband's face. And when he said that he couldn't eat all the things anymore, I knew that I had to do something bigger, something greater. And I had this idea of starting a nonprofit organization and making cakes for kids just like Gracie, for kids that are in and out of the hospital their entire lives, in and out of surgeries. I had to start a legacy for her, and Cakes from Grace became that legacy. To this day, I still make cakes every week for kids with congenital heart defects, just like Gracie, bringing them to the hospitals and their homes, and whenever they need joy and a break from all the hard heart stuff, I bring them a cake. And I'm thankful every day that I have Cakes from Grace to lean on, and Cakes from Grace representing Gracie and making me feel like I still am taking care of Gracie in a way, and fulfilling all of the thousands of cakes that I would have made for her throughout her entire life. A story keeps on going, and the grief, it doesn't go away. The sadness and hurt and anger, it doesn't go away. I'm 6 years without her. It doesn't get easier, it just changes. Doesn't get better in time, doesn't. People say that and they're liars. They don't know. It just changes. But one thing that never changes is how much I live to say her name every day. Gracie, Gracie, Gracie. That's my story. That's Gracie's story. And one reason why Ashley and I wanted to start this mom channel is because we wanted to talk about our kids. Not just our kids that are living, but our kids that are in heaven. So if you know a friend that has lost a little one, has lost a child, or has had a miscarriage or anything, please share this video with them. Let them know that they're not alone in all these feelings. And sometimes it's just good to hear somebody else's story because it makes you feel less alone, a little less alone. Thank you for doing that. I thank you for watching this video, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. That's all I have for you guys today. We'll see you in the next one. Go to bed, swim happy.